Monday morning. It is the 9th day of June 2025. Well, having conversations around sport, we've done water sport, we have also done para sport. Now, let's talk to a man who really made his mark in one sport, dominated it for 10 years, I think from 1979 to 1989. Looks like it's a long time, but being top of your game for 10 years in any sport is not a small feat. And we're with Mr. Asif Chaudhry. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he was in the country here and having been here and trying to put together squash tournament. He did the was tournament director at the Karen Open that came to a close just about just last week back one, and this brought together players from across the continent and also from the UK, as if just trying to look at the whole concept of that tournament and Karen hosting it. What was the work to put it together and eventually deliver 6 days of high-level squash?
Well, the intention was to bring together some good players from across Africa, as well as from the UK, and to hold a PSA satellite event. As you know, the PSA stands for Professional Squash Association, and when you enter the tournaments, you get points, which helps you to progress to the higher levels and help your ranking in the world. So this was a satellite event, and I was very grateful to Crown Paints for coming in and sponsoring it, as well as Karen Country Club for hosting it. And this will now lead to more events. We had entries from Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, and even there was an entry from UK, all of budding good players looking to improve their standing in the world and get more points. That was the basis of the event.
Competitively, how would you rate that event that you hosted?
Competitively, it is a stepping stone for all the professional squash players as they begin their journey trying to gain points. For this event, for example, in the final, we had the Zimbabwean who is ranked in the 200s, late about 280 in the world, and he played against Kenyan #1, Muqtadir Nimji, who is just about 300 plus something. And it was a very close match. Eventually, in the 5th game, Muqtadir was injured and he couldn't continue, so Ryan won. But that would now give Ryan quite a few points to help him bring his ranking further up. And that would also help him to enter in future tournaments with more prize money.
Well, and let's talk about Nimji and working, because I know he's got to balance between his education and also his squash out there. What's the edge that he currently has, simply by being based in the UK?
Yeah,
he's being here in Kenya.
Muqtadir Nimji, as a junior, he came to play in our British Junior Open. I have been based in the UK for well over 22 years, although I'm still a Kenyan, and I come back every year or so. And he came and played in our Junior Open twice, and then he got the confidence to come for the further education in the University of Birmingham and play squash, and he joined our club. He had very good training initially with our top players. The semi-finalist in the British Open 2 days ago, Joel Makin, also helped Mux when he was only about 16 or 17 and gave him some good tips, some lessons. And that helped Muqtadir to improve his ranking.
No, I mean, this comes naturally in sport. Eventually, you'll have to use somebody's nickname. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, so Muqtadir did very well. In fact, he went on to represent Kenya at the Commonwealth Games, and he was a runner-up in the plate event of the Commonwealth Games, which was very good. And that has encouraged him to look at being a professional. And I'm hoping there will be more Kenyans who would like to follow that path. Not necessarily have to come to the UK, but there are other ways you can improve here in Kenya, as well as you can travel within Africa, within East and Central Africa. The standard of squash in Central Africa is very high. Zambia, Zimbabwe, because they have had access to playing events in South Africa. So that's a stepping stone, and that's hoping more Kenyans will be encouraged to improve their squash that way.
Well, let's now talk about getting the squash, getting the sport to grow here in the country as squash, and also to demystify it as as a sport that has got a very high entry barriers of entry. There may be several. What's the best thing to encourage youngsters to do?
The only way is to encourage grassroots. Grassroots squash in Kenya should be promoted at the most. We have the facilities. Many of the facilities need to be renovated. I have mentioned before that all the clubs that have squash courts should take it upon themselves to improve their, renovate their courts and encourage their juniors, the kids. If you start with the kids, once you have a junior playing squash, he will want to carry on. And the facilities are there now. It's not that we don't have the facilities. Well, there are, in the radius of about 30 miles of Nairobi, there are 150 squash courts. Some are still there, some are being used, some have gone idle, some have been changed to other gym or storage. But it's time we got together and we revived them and brought the squash back to the levels that we used to have in the late 70s and the 80s.
And one of the things that everyone needs to understand, let's first talk about the playing surface and also, the
walls, yeah.
The walls that you have. Just describe them so that, if you're going to have a proper court, everyone knows this is what it looks like.
We must have squash courts with decent floors. The floors need to be sanded regularly, maybe once in a year, so that they are not, players don't slip. And the walls need to be painted white, so that, that is the norm in squash. That's all that is needed. You don't need to build new courts in Kenya. Courts are already there. It's just that we need to revive those courts. When you look at other sports where they have to build, like football pitches, hockey stadium. Hockey has to be put a new Astro pitch. In squash, we've got the courts there. We just need to revive them. And this is something that it can be done by all the clubs in Kenya. Just repair your courts, encourage the juniors. All parents would want their juniors to play, so even club members should bring the juniors there. And even we have enough coaches. There are a lot of local coaches in Kenya who also would be very grateful if there were more clubs where they improve the facility and they would then require the services of a coach. There are enough coaches, local coaches. So, everything is there. It's just we need the clubs to promote. When it comes to the equipment, we need, obviously, rackets and balls. Balls are always available, can be provided. I always bring and give them out myself, bring kit. But there are a lot of rackets lying in stores, in people's cupboards. They don't use them anymore. Every squash player who has played the game, he has not thrown his racket away. It's lying somewhere. And I would encourage them to bring them out and, forward them to the grassroots, wherever there are grassroots beginning to come up, and encourage the juniors to play the game. And that's the only way we can improve.
And one of the things that you've mentioned, it's always, when you say the floors have to be sanded at least once a year.
Once a year,
and that means the surface has to be wood.
Wood, yes. The surface has to be wood. There are courts in Kenya where they have a cement floor. I started by squash on a cement floor, but that is not good for future because it will be taxing on your knees. All the courts that are there, some of them may need floors to be changed, but again, it comes back to sponsorship and the clubs. If they have a facility where the structure is there, changing the floor is not that expensive. If we were to ask clubs to build new squash courts, then you are looking at more money. But the courts are already there. All they need to do is get together and get the floors fixed, repaired, sanded, and get the juniors playing.
Actually, one of the things that I would like to, most people would be afraid of is, I look at Karen, or think of Karen Country Club. Yep. It's a private members club, so they may have access. I mean, think of Parkland Sports, sports clubs and this. How do you then engage these private entities to allow, say, youngsters or members of the public to come and participate in the sport, even if they don't have a membership at that facility?
Yeah, that is a good point. Now, at present, most clubs will allow juniors to come in if they are under the supervision of an organized coach, and they will encourage them to play. There are other squash courts that are in Nairobi around, which are with entities like banks, There's a Ministry of Works. They have a squash court. They have 2 courts in Nairobi West, in Nairobi South Sea. Then there are banks. There are a lot of banks along Thika Road where they have squash courts. They need to revive those. If not open it up to all the juniors, at least get your fellow club members to bring their juniors. That is a good start. And then we have 3 academies which are running. There is one academy run by a movie in Portland Cement in Athi River, who have allowed him free access to the courts as long as he's promoting squash amongst the juniors. We have another coach who's called Abdul Aziz at Parklands, runs Talanta Squash Academy. He is allowed by the club to bring juniors, and he brings them from Kibera and around every Saturday. You see, clubs are open to initiatives like this, but we need to get the kids out first. And there wouldn't be a club, I don't think there would be a club that would refuse its courts for juniors, especially grassroots, and especially if they're not being used. So, you know, if members were to get together and renovate the courts, there wouldn't be any hindrance to the juniors coming.
Well, actually, I think when I just take a look at it, just remembered I saw a squash court at one of, I think it was at the Pumwani school grounds.
Yeah.
So they've got one, but it's not being used. So the school, just make a call. You know, the other thing is schools which have got these facilities, but they're actually not making use of them.
There are many schools with squash courts. When I was in school, Nairobi school, Lenana school had squash courts. They are there, so it would be up to the school to revive it there. Then we have other private schools. Most of the private schools in Kenya, they have squash courts. But it is getting the seniors, the members, the adults to encourage the kids to play. And of course, squash is a very good sport. It's very healthy for the kids, and it's better than having them on their mobile phones and all that. So it's better for the parents to encourage the kids to play, especially those parents who used to play the game. So if they can start with their kids, we can at least we have somewhere to go.
Let's also talk about the building up to Glasgow 2026, the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And you've already mentioned about Nimji being a top Kenyan player. What's required, knowing having reviewed from the standards of Birmingham 2022? What's required for Kenyan athletes?
Okay, firstly, squash is not in the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Squash is there for the Olympics. First time. But for this Olympics, because it's, they will only be able to invite the top 16 in the world. So that's a long way to go for Kenyans to make it.
Wow, so Egypt is already represented by...
Yeah, Egypt will be there. Egypt will be allowed maybe 2 entries or 3 or 4 entries. But we have others, the All Africa Games are coming up.
Yes.
I believe squash is also there in the Africa Youth Championships. That is a good way to look at it. But we will still, juniors can always come and, once they attain some standard, to play in our British Junior Open, which is open. And if Kenya was to enter some juniors in the British Junior Open, obviously that need to be of some standard to come. There would be no hindrance. They would have automatic entries in all age groups if they were to come. So there is events to come. But then again, we have local junior tournaments, which I've been running, and there are others who have had a tournament every year. We start with having juniors play in those events. And, once the juniors start playing in these, they will then want to, participate in more events.
All right. Thank you very much. It's all about the youngsters. That's the message that we're getting from a Kenya squash great, Sir Chaudhry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Safe travels as you go back. And we would like to see that sport revived. And like he's mentioned, if there's the school with the squash court, open it. For the clubs, work with the community, get the juniors going. We'll be